So, after coming out of the most powerful representation of African American police relations in the media today, what do I see? Yeah, a cop glaring at me and staring me down. Yeah, my mental health really needed that. Thanks. Hello everyone, Riley here, and today's movie is Blindspotting. Now, Blindspotting is directed by Carlos Lopez Estrada and is co-written by and stars Tony winner David Diggs and Rafael Casal. Now, this movie, it's kind of hard to explain the actual plot of this film because the first half of it is mostly character building and world building and setting up the actual nature of how life is in Oakland at this time period. So, basically, the best representation of the plot that I can say without getting into spoilers is David Diggs' character is in his last 3 days of probation. And it's about his relationship with his friend, played by Rafael Casal, and they're both movers. And Diggs ends up seeing a African-American man get shot by police, and it's kind of about the trauma that results from that. But it's also about a lot more. Now, as I just mentioned, the first half of this movie is more setting up the characters, Oakland, and the nature of a lot of the relationships in this area and a lot of the tensions that are in this area. And it's overall more comedic. There's a lot of great comedic parts to the first half of this movie. There are definitely some very deep, heavy scenes in the first half. It creates more of a sense of intrigue, but then the second half comes and it is dark, powerful, haunting, chilling, and visceral. And honestly, this movie is straight up fantastic. It is by far the best movie I've seen in 2018 so far. The first half of this movie is very good. Not fantastic, but it's very good. It's entertaining, it's engaging, it's interesting. But the second half of this movie just tears the roof down. It just blowed my socks off. Like, honestly, I have not had this visceral of a reaction to a movie in theaters, I don't think ever. Now, this movie clocks in at 1 hour and 35. However, it feels like it's 2 hours, 2:10. And that's not because it's too slow or drudging. No, that's because it's so packed and so filled to the brim with content, and it's such a deep and dense movie. And even though it is filled with content, it doesn't feel like it's short-sighted in any of them, or it doesn't feel like it slights any of the meaning or anything in this movie. The editing of this film and the fact that they were able to get it in that small of a window but have so much in there is just an insane achievement. Now, there are a lot of themes in this movie and a lot of stuff that they touch on, and it is woven together in a really seamless way, and the screenplay does a great job at integrating all of these different themes and motifs together in a way that it feels impactful, yet not like they're throwing things in at every second. It feels natural. Now, first, there's the trauma element of it, where David Diggs sees an African-American man being shot by police, and he has a lot of traumatic moments after that because he saw this intense situation unfold in front of him, and this is one of the most haunting tellings of just a pure traumatic incident that I've seen in a long time. And there's this really unique and interesting dream sequence that they do that takes place in a courtroom. It is one of the best dream sequences I've ever seen, and it is chilling. The use of sound, the use of dialogue, the use of the camera techniques, the cinematography of that scene, it is so well done, and it is truly haunting. Another thing they touch on is the use of the N-word and how it kind of has grown to mean something new in modern lingo. And I think that the element that they touch on there is actually quite fascinating, and I've never really seen it done this way, where the N-word is applied to white people as well as black people, and the way that kind of different people react to the word being used to honestly represent them. I think that the differences and the juxtaposition of the characters utilizing this word works insanely well, and it is very thought-provoking of an idea, and I have a lot of respect for the amount of guts that it took to put this in the movie. There is a scene at the beginning of the movie that I think is probably the weakest scene. It's the scene where they're moving this photographer. They're moving a lot of his stuff out of his house. And even though it is probably the weakest scene, it has a lot to say about the human spirit and how, through eyes, how people actually connect with each other and how people are honestly being oppressed in a way where you can't see people's eyes at certain points later on in the movie, and I think that element of it works insanely well. And even though that may be the least entertaining scene to watch, it still had a lot to say. There are elements about gun rights, and it is showed in a very traditional but still a very well done way with gun rights and the dangers of gun violence in the home. And honestly, what it means to be an individual and how proving yourself to try and be someone else honestly ends up just hurting yourself and especially the ones who love you. And it ends up just being detrimental to everyone. So the fact that it had so many different elements inside of it was really captivating to watch. Now, the ambient noise is used so well, especially in this one scene in a house where you have the hint of an alarm system going off and then a fan moving and overall just like the creaking of someone's hand on something, and it just starts melding together with the score, and it's just honestly so powerful. And that's just a word that I just can't say enough about this movie. It is just one of the most powerful movies I've ever seen. The character relations and the performances, Daveed Diggs gives by far the best leading male performance of the year so far to date. Like, to me, there's no question about it. And honestly, the interactions that him and Casal have, and him and his ex-girlfriend have, and so many of the character relationships are so well developed and so emotionally satisfying towards the end, and the end feels such a fantastic conclusion to this movie. Now, me, I'm not a big rap fan. It's just not my cup of tea when it comes to music. I prefer, honestly, just instrumental or sung music. But the way that rap is integrated into this movie is fantastic. And it kind of is used as the inner, deeper thoughts of the two main characters, where they kind of start freestyle rapping a bit, and it kind of shows their freedom and just the honest, true honesty behind their words. And it feels like all the filter and all of the social implications just go, and it's just them just talking and them just expressing what they really want to express deep down in the most eloquent way possible. And especially there's this scene at the end where it's just almost entirely Daveed Diggs rapping, and that scene is insanely powerful. And the way that it is written, the actual lyrics that he is rapping, and the emotion that he is putting behind each and every word is so powerful. And that's just one of the things that I have to say about this movie. The second half is so powerful, and there is one specific scene where it is Daveed Diggs staring at a cop car, and it is quite possibly the most powerful scene I've ever seen in a movie. And it was the most heart-racing, pounding, just intense scene that I've ever seen. The score behind it, and overall the utilization of the score and ambient noise throughout tons of different scenes to create tension is so chilling. And honestly, I felt the verge of a panic attack coming. Not completely, but I felt like the urge to really just break emotionally come out of this movie. And I've never felt this way this much. And it's just powerful. It's just honestly one of the most raw and emotional experiences and the most visceral emotional experiences I've ever had in my life coming out of this movie. And a lot of that has to do with me personally going through this. And I know this isn't about this movie, but I'm just going to talk personally for a little bit. Now, as someone who's mixed race, half Caucasian, half African American, who doesn't visually distinctly look specifically one or the other, I look kind of in between. I'm kind of put in a position where people perceive me as more akin to whichever people I'm around. There are so many times when I'm just out with my African American mom or other people who are not of Caucasian descent, like African American, Indian, Asian, whatever, who, when those times happen, something just snaps and I can just feel the energy completely change. And I can just feel the paranoia set in. And the fear and the general just uneasiness just sets in instantaneously. And there's no warning to it. And honestly, like, that's been my entire life. And in this movie, in a completely different way, like, when one thing happens, when Daveed Diggs' character has one thing happen to him, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but when that happens, everything just snapped exactly like that. And it didn't hold up. And honestly, for someone who that has been a big part of their lives, where they've been sort of worry-free until something just snaps, and then you have to be in an intense state of paranoia just to feel like nothing's going to go wrong because of the race issue. Like, it was honestly one of the most personally moving stories and tellings I've ever seen in my life. And I will always remember this movie for that reason. Now, I know a lot of you don't have the personal relationship to this movie that I will, and that's completely fine. So drop down in the comment section below what you thought of it, if you've seen it, or if you're excited to see the movie. And if you like this video and want to see more of my videos, click the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the bell notification icon next to it. And as always, thanks for watching.